With that, ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor in inviting our next speaker, is Engineer Roshan Chandraguptha. Roshan obtained the BSc Electronics and Telecommunication Engineering in University of Moratuwa in Sri Lanka. He also obtained the Master Degree in Telecommunication from University of Moratuwa in Sri Lanka. He is a Cisco Certified Network Associate, Cisco Certified Security Professional, Certified Ethical Hacker, Computer Hacking Forensic Investigator, and Certified Information System Security Professional. He has been involved in handling many security incidents, including government and private sector. Currently, he is serving as the Principal Engineer at Sri Lanka CERT. With this little introduction, I have the honor in inviting Engineer Roshan Chandraguptha to deliver his speech. Over to you, Roshan.
Good morning to all of you, and I would like to thank at the beginning to the Sri Lanka Army and the Sri Lanka Army Signal Corps for inviting me to deliver this presentation. And I think Dr. Sanjay Veernavarna has set up the theme for my presentation very nicely, introducing all the types of attacks and things that can happen in cyber world, and how we need to be aware of these kind of activities as well. So in my presentation, what I might like to highlight is how we can have a collaboration with general public, maybe civilians, so that cyber defense mechanisms will be much more stronger, and how we can move forward and protecting our systems in that way. So I would like to talk a little bit of different types of cyber threats in a different angle, of course, you will see that. And what are the mechanisms that you have to defend yourself, and what are the information sources that you can collect information for your defense and to identify your enemy and maybe the enemy's move. And of course, how the civilians can contribute and how we can move forward as well. So the types of cyber threats, Dr. Sanjay Veernavarna explained the technical terms and so on, and one of those slides explained why people attack. So if you wanted to identify how do you protect yourself, we need to identify what are the types of threats we face. So threats, in one way, we can call it as relevant to the cyber as cyber crimes. So who carry out these cyber crimes? Of course, criminals. Of course, they wanted to have a criminal, or they have a criminal intent. So they wanted to find out maybe for financial gain, to popularize their norms and so on and so forth. They carry out cyber crimes or criminal activities. And the other part is cyber espionage. Of course, technically you can explain it, okay, what this cyber espionage means and who is doing and why and so on and so forth. But basically it means improper acquisition of confidential or classified data. So in that case, we have one important parameter. One is classified data. So in any system, military or government organization, private organization, they should have their data classification done properly so that you know which information to protect thoroughly and which information can go into public at a later stage at least, and so on and so forth. And the other type of threats that you face is from cyber terrorism. So of course they have their own ideologically motivated people, group of people around the world, maybe targeting you or your systems or your critical infrastructure. So in that case, how they behave, what's their motivation, and that kind of understanding will give you an idea, okay, what are their capabilities and what are the capabilities we need to come up with it to counter this kind of attack. And then the cyber warfare, where the people have been talking in the previous session also. The military, the next war that you have to face, people say it has to be cyber warfare, because it will not be fought by people and with the arms and guns and so on. Because the information and the system, when you depend on the system so much, and if the criminals or the cyber terrorists can attack your dependency on these systems, then that can cause lots of problem for you. So in that case, knowing these types of attacks and the group of people who might be able to do that will give you an idea, okay, how we can move forward to protect our systems. So how to defend yourself? Of course, you can invest on technology. You can purchase different set of technology, hardware, software, and to monitor the networks and so many other things you can include. That is one way of doing that. And second way, maybe, of course, however you have AI and all other high cutting edge technology, you need to have some kind of a human touch as well with experience. Because however you teach the computers, it might not be 100% giving you the answers that you want to have. So you need to have some kind of a human intervention to protect your systems as well. Of course, experience will give you lots of insight into the types of things that you see. At the same time, you might have to have the knowledge of the experts. Maybe military might not have or might have some experts within themselves, the good people with lots of ability to have a battlefield going on and all the logistics relevant to that and so on. But technical know-how and so on, you might have to get it from an outside party or a technical expert who is expert on that particular subject area. Of course, technology, human touch and experts and all those people, what they try to do is to detect and predict threats before it happens. If that can be done, that will be the best way to protect yourself, because you know something going to happen, or this is the people who are going to attack us, and if you know that, you can prepare for that. And of course, you can think of all the types of scenarios that you can encounter, and based on that, you can prepare a cyber readiness plan saying, okay, if something goes wrong, something happens through our cyber systems, what are the steps that we need to take in this kind of a cyber attack? How we identify these different types of cyber threats, and we need to identify it early, because unlike the other type of attacks where it might take some time to say come into a full force, cyber kind of a things might happen very quickly. So of course, internet is not governed by any one organization or one individual, so it will be very difficult for you to understand what is happening around the world in cyberspace. So one way of identifying this kind of a thing is social media sites where people get together and form groups, maybe closed group or open groups, and try to attack or try to target a particular organization or an individual or a particular organization for their own motivations. And of course, you might have different blogs where people talk about different activities and their ideology and so on and so forth. Of course, those might be available publicly so that anyone who is looking at the internet might be able to identify it. But then you have these instant messaging apps where you can call it as WhatsApp, Viber, Imo, you name it, there are so many. And those communication means most of the time is encrypted and secure communication means. So whether you have a military technology to intercept it, whether to identify what these people are talking and what they are planning, if you can have it, yes, that's very good way of having information. But unlikely you get that information from these sources because it is handled by a different organization situated in a different country. So earlier also we mentioned that whenever they say, okay, we are an international company and so on, but those are governed by specific laws and regulation in specific country. So in that case, it will be very difficult to intercept or to know what is happening within that particular instant messaging groups. And of course, how you can get this information of experts and cyber criminals, you might think, okay, why we have put the experts and cyber criminals together. But in a way, some cyber criminals may be experts on their specific field. So we talk about the virus attacks, ransomware attacks, and different variants that can happen, and if you are an expert who can create ransomware or modify a ransomware or a virus, malware, worm, you can call it in different terms. Whatever it is, it can damage your systems and critical infrastructure as well. So you might say, okay, we have the world best antivirus software which is running in our system, so no one can send us a ransomware or a virus. But if it is a zero-day attack, which a virus which was created right now can attack your systems, none of your antivirus software will be able to identify it unless it's a kind of a variant or whatever it is. But most of the time, most of the attacks that impacted these systems are zero-day types of attacks, which was not seen by any of those antivirus software companies as of that day. So in that case, you need to have these experts and cyber criminals. Maybe they might talking in a specific group, social media sites or closed group or open group to attack a particular entity. So I can relate it to one of those stories that comes up with this social media and the closed group, open group. Depending on the time availability, I will try to relate that story as well. So in these cases, as I mentioned, how we can get this information is from software tools. Yes, different organizations have said, okay, we have the software tools to identify what is happening in the cyber world, and you can monitor the entire cyberspace and so on. Of course, internet, the number of devices connected, number of users connected is huge. And one software, if it is possible to capture all the things what is happening around and give you some intelligence, that will be really good. But it will be very difficult, and practically it will be very impossible to get it as well. And of course, for these social media sites or the internet sites, the access level that you have or the software have might be very limited as well. So what they can capture is what is available in public domain. But the people who are talking in closed groups will not be captured by this software most of the time. And of course, different people in different parts of the world is talking in different languages. So of course, language barrier will be there. So we will understand a couple of languages where we can understand what they talk about. But if it is from a foreign country, they are trying to attack your systems, and that language will have a problem. And also the latest threat might not be captured in that kind of a software tools, because it has to be trained to identify, okay, these are the new threats and new vulnerabilities or new attacks levels that you can have. Of course, civilians who is working in different parts of the world with their different language understanding might be very helpful to get this information for your protection as well. So civilian collaboration, how we can talk about it? Of course, in a way, we can suggest an architecture or a hierarchy, something like a defense cert or a CSERT. We'll say in Sri Lanka Army and Air Force and Navy, you have different computer emergency readiness teams or computer security incident response teams. So to identify what is happening within the cyberspace within your domain. And when you can identify it, you can collaborate with some other certs, other defense certs in or other countries for you to get some information what is happening and what are the threats they face and how we can protect yourself from that kind of activities. And of course, how you can get the information from all the other places is having lots of eyes and ears. So how you can get it done is through the general public or civilians whom can find out some details within the social media sites and groups and what they talk about, whether they want to target a particular military institute and so on. And that information, you can collect it from civilians to different parts of the certs in different parts of the world. So that you can get it through the defense systems so that you know exactly what is happening around the other parts of the world. And of course, seeking expertise on this kind of activities would be very interesting, because technically no one will be 100% knowing all kind of things to handle in many cases, because these cyber attacks and viruses and malware, and you can think of it, it is widely varied different types of thing, and also to make the matters worse, if you have Internet of Things connected, as we saw in one of those videos earlier, so many things connected into one big network where one individual will not be able to be an expert on all type of things that you can see. And of course, one of the other things that I highlight in many defense related or the police or that kind of forums is how you purchase this software and hardware from different vendors. Of course, whenever we say, okay, we are a military force and we are Sri Lanka Army or Navy or Air Force and we are going to purchase this item for our, say, data center or our computers and for our officers, we are going to purchase this mobile phone or laptop or desktop or whatever. And we want to have the necessary software installed as well. So when you, as a government organization, you have to go by the government rules and regulation, of course. And in that case, you will say, okay, we are putting up a tender to purchase items for us. And when it says military, some companies and vendors might be bidding with a very low price, having a backdoor to all of your systems. So although you take the system and items, and you might think, okay, we are safe, but all of your data might be known by some other party. They might be collecting your data, which you might not know. And you might say, okay, we have our expert to monitor and check, and we have firewalls and all the technological things in place. But the person who wants to evade all of those systems can be implemented, a new thing can be implemented for this kind of a purchases as well. So that is something that we need to think most of the time, how we can move forward in this kind of a system to make sure that whatever the things that you purchase is secure. Maybe it could be one option like, okay, for Sri Lanka government or some organization, we purchase this item, but then it will be moved into the military. So the vendor will not know exactly where finally these items will rest. So that who is the user and for what purpose they use will not be revealed to any vendor, so that you know how you can protect your data and information. And of course, the criminals will not have the necessary information from you. And also, in-house development practically might be bit tough, because we have to be interconnected with other standard systems, and well, might be an option for you to have internal development and internal staff talking in these kind of activities as well. And of course, one few thing that I wanted to highlight in the beginning also, the data classification is very important thing. And in the previous presentation also, we talk about putting data into the cloud. What type of data we can put it into a cloud, how we can protect them, and what are the methods to use to protect this data that we can put it into this kind of a cloud where we don't know where exactly the data is residing in which computer. And of course, in any case, if you have classified data, secret data that you want to protect, you need to put it into a cell where you have defense in depth. You have different lines of defense. Obviously, defense people, we know how the defense works, but in cyber world also you need to have so much of barriers for an attacker to come into your system, so that it will be very difficult for them to come into your systems. And of course, readiness to your cyber attacks is one other thing. Of course, you have to have a plan for if this kind of attack happens, and of course a backup plan for the plans as well. And of course, you can have cyber drills, so that with the different organization structure that I talked about earlier, you can have a cyber drill saying, okay, how the civilians can get that information to one defense force and how that can be exchanged into your defense forces and so on. So you can have different sector-based cyber drills, or based on the organization, how you can elaborate on that. And of course, awareness among all the staff, because ultimately each and every individual is using a mobile phone, laptop, or whatever it is. So how you can protect yourself in this kind of a scenario. And finally, before I stop, I'll just have this Department of Defense in US. They have published a cyber strategy 2018. With the slide contain the URL for that particular document as well. It's a very lengthy document. But it says, ensuring the joint force can achieve missions in a contested cyberspace environment. So they are also highlighting that you need to have a joint force activities done so that you can protect your systems and you can defend your systems much more better. And strengthening those kind of a joint force. And of course, they are highlighting a system where securing a Department of Defense systems against a malicious cyber activity, including Department of Defense information and non-defense owner networks, which means they are looking at the private sector, public sector, different networks also. You can try to protect them as well. So in that case, you will have a good idea and visibility on what type of attacks that can happen and what are the targets that they're going to achieve as well. Expanding DoD cyber cooperation with intelligence, industry and international partners is one of the suggestions that they have for this 2018 cyber strategy from Department of Defense in US. So that is some points to think how we need to go forward and move forward in this kind of a cyberspace to make sure that we are strong enough to take up the challenges from the enemy. So with last 1 minute, I will try to talk about the experience that we had in 2014, where through set of cyber system or social media sites, people were discussing attacking government websites in Sri Lanka. So that was highlighted to us by different sources. Of course, the people who looked at the social media sites and looked at this information shared by those particular individuals. And they said, okay, this kind of a thing is being discussed in this particular forum. Do you know about it? Are you aware of it? Do you have a plan to protect your systems? And then it was an open group at that time, so anyone can see it. After a couple of days' time, it was turned into a closed group. So no one knows what is happening within that group. But luckily, we had one individual going into the group so that we knew what exactly they were discussing. And exactly whenever they discussed, we knew what their target, what they are going to attack and so on. And we took precautionary mechanism, precautionary steps to protect ourselves. So similarly, if you can have a collaboration with the civil society, civil organization, general public, then you can get lots of information because you will have lots of eyes and ears of the cyber world so that you can protect your system much more better than what we are doing right now. So with that thought, I will conclude my presentation and thank you very much for listening, and we'll have some question and answers after the presentation.